Hey, hi Sharthok.
Hi, Ranak.
Hey, welcome to the very first episode of the Cuhrious Show, the show where we talk about the future of HR and other interesting things in the people space, which, well, nobody seems to be talking about. First of all, thank you, thanks, man, for being here. I know you're a busy man. Thanks for taking time out, and really excited to have you here and look forward for the to our conversation over the next hour.
Absolutely. I'm never too busy for you. Thank you for having me on the first episode. So a little scared as well because this is the first one. But yes, always exciting to speak with you.
Yeah, likewise, likewise. I think you and I know each other for a while, but for everyone who's listening, why don't we just take 2 minutes and tell everyone who is Sharthok, what is Sharthok up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-founders of Klaar, which is an HR tech platform, and my other co-founder is Atri. And I was actually in HR for the last 7 years before Klaar happened, from 2015 onwards till 2021 end. And yeah, it's been exciting, being in HR and then moving into the HR tech space on the other side of the table. So Klaar just closed its seed round, exciting space, demanding space. So that's what keeps me up at night. And yeah, I'm presently in the US, trying to crack the US market for Klaar. Yeah, that's a 30 second speech about me.
Thanks for sharing, and congratulations on the seed round. I
Thank you
just
so much.
one quick question and double click on what you said. Since I think you're one of those few who's you've seen both sides of the market at an early stage, India market, right? And you came from the people tech background. Then you started your own business. You sold in the India market. You're selling in the US market. What's the difference, like especially from a people tech landscape? How is it different? How's the markets different from both sides of the globe?
I think the market expectations or the way people look at HR tech is different. So in India, and you would know this and resonate with this, that in India there is more of a horizontal approach where people are more comfortable having, let's say, every aspect of the employee life cycle or every aspect of HR tech on one platform. So our HRIS landscape, you will find, catering to this. While the US, the concept over here being that they are okay as in they specifically look out for point solutions which give them that depth. Of course, they also want integrations. They want, data to flow from one platform to another, and a consolidation push is happening here as well. But essentially, what we are finding out is that as long as you give them the depth, that's what they are more interested in. So India is more of a horizontal play while US is a vertical play. The second biggest difference I found is that India relies a lot on CS teams, like customer success teams, customer success and implementation teams. US is more of a hands-on sort of an approach by the companies themselves. So they they want to do self-serve. Like they're very open about it. That I mean, we would appreciate a responsive CS, but the majority needs to be done on the platform. It needs to be that intuitive, and we need to do that self-serve ourselves. So two stark differences apart from decision making and cultural nuances.
Got it, got it. But what about then the entry level point for new players, right? Now, somebody who's a very developed tech tool, right, will be very
Hmm.
self-serve. But someone who's just stepping into the
Hmm.
market, right? And from what I hear, US is very big with just build quick, deploy, iterate. How does that fit in?
Yeah.
Then won't it be difficult for new people to just pave their entry or get their foot into the door because you won't be able to do self-serve at that point?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it is. It is difficult, something that we are figuring out ourselves. So, in terms of bigger companies, the expectations, and even in India, right? I mean, the expectations, the bigger the company, the more the expectations. So, here we have found that you need to be very, I would say, very focused on who you are selling to, right? So, if self-serve expectations are there, but that doesn't mean that in the US people don't give feedback, for example. So and I would say as much as India, or even sometimes more than the Indian market. So they are okay with iterating with you as long as they see that, they see that progress, that you are living up to your promises, your milestones, etc., etc. But to answer your question, not being diplomatic here, to answer your question, is it difficult for a new level player? Yes, very difficult, very difficult. So you need to, choose those customers who will make or break and be your first 10, 15 ones. But it is indeed a lot more competition.
Got it. That's let me take that as a segue into a question, right? And I think you're the right person to answer this, because I think in your past life you were an HRBP, right? So
Hmm,
you've seen the
hmm,
multitude of problems, and India is adopting people technology at a rapid pace, right? I mean, there's
yeah.
it's the norm now that you must have an HR tech tool and move out from, let's say, Excels. Uh, when when is actually the right time? So we have so many young companies, startups mushrooming up, right? Let's say there's an HRBP, right? What advice would you have for that HRBP, and how should they go about navigating? When do they actually take an HR tool? And a second part to that question is, let's say they do decide to, what's the flow should be,
Hmm,
right? What's the first tool you should take? What next? What next?
got it. So if I understand the question correctly, is HRBPs in tech companies specifically, or like in the entire landscape, like the first part of the
Ideally, I
question.
think startups mostly.
Startups. Got it. Got it. So my advice to HRBPs is something which I learned the hard way, which is, um, you will be stretched and pulled in all directions. But why does the role exist? Like, why did the business partnering role come about in the first place? It came about because business felt the need that there needs to be someone from the people team, someone or a team from the people team, who needs to help, probably coach us, um, uh, bounce ideas off, etc., etc. Now, what that means essentially is, and my first piece of advice always is, and I'll give an example. In a lot of the HR communities, some which you are there with me, you will find questions like, what HR initiatives can we run? Now,
Hmm.
that question makes no sense to me, because um, the the HR initiatives cannot run standalone, and that question you cannot be asking to a community who has no idea of your company. So you need to, my first advice is, you need to understand your company first, right? So what does your company do? I mean, where does the revenue come from? What are the different functions? How do the different functions operate? So you need to understand business as much, if not more, than the business guys themselves. In fact, one of my mentors, Prabir, always says that HR is business, people is business, right? So you need to understand that end to end as an HR business partner. The second piece of advice I always share, and why that question sort of irks me as well, is because, again, the initiative cannot be standalone. So, what your business needs, what your business goals are, if you view it from a people lens, your initiatives will automatically shine through. So, if your business goals are to double your revenue, which is an aggressive target in most cases, how do you double your revenue, right? What are the people levers that are happening? Is your organization primed for high performance? What does high performance mean? Do your managers coach people well? If somebody is not doing well on performance, can the manager step in and coach? So then you will automatically find those interventions. So know the business, know the company, know the business, understand the business objectives, and then, deep dive into the initiatives is a broad level, sort of advice which I give. And then I it's obviously not that simple, right? That even if you do that, in some cases you will find pushback, because business loves pushing back HR, right? So you will find pushback, and it's the another advice would be, understand how you can generate that leadership buy-in, and you I have seen to be super prolific with numbers, and that's very, very important, because Whenever people say that HR is a softer aspect, etc., I think both of us get really mad because it's not. It's number driven. Of course, there are softer aspects, but you need to back up your ideas with numbers, generate that leadership buy-in, and yeah, that's my advice to HRBPs. From a tool perspective, being the founder of a performance management platform, etc., etc., I'm probably shooting myself in the foot by saying this, but a tool is not a silver bullet. It's not the be all and end all panacea that people think that a tool will come and everything will be okay. So why do you need a tool in the first place, right? What are the challenges which you are facing right now, and where can a tool help you get better? So if you have clarity on these things, it becomes easier to generate leadership buy-in for the platform, to use the platform, and to adopt the platform. And to answer the question that which tool should we actually take and prioritize, etc., typically, and I would love to also understand from you, but typically what I have seen is, even in my company, we are now 23 people strong. The first thing that we realized is we have to process salaries, right? And doing it on Excel sheets, etc., is tedious. So the first platform that we took was indeed a payroll platform. Then came that people are taking leaves, rightly so, but we need visibility for that. So can we have leave visibility? So that's been the journey in terms of first setting the HR ops processes, I would say, steady at a steady state. So your payroll, your leaves, your onboarding, etc. Once those are there, then move into the next set of priorities, which can be performance, which can be engagement, which can be those other things going ahead. And side by side, you might look at other platforms as well, depending on the culture. Some people, they go for recognition platforms, or certain other rewards platforms. So that's depending on the company culture. But first, set your basics correct, which is your HR ops, your HR onboarding, your documentation, storage, etc., etc., and then go for the next levers according to your people priorities.
Got it. So basically, take it as you're facing those problems, right? As you go along in the company, you're going to be faced with different escalating problems. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
even in my experience, I've seen taking an HRIS tool, as you said, is not a silver bullet. It's if you take a tool without knowing what problems it's solving, it's going to
yeah,
create a new set of problems. um,
yeah.
yeah, cool. I have a question here, which I think it's a topic that we both enjoy talking about, which is recruitment.
Hmm.
And we didn't touch on recruitment, but recruitment, I think, ideally, barring HRIS, that's that one problem, right? That everybody faces, and because it's
Yeah,
recruitment, it's not just localized to the people function, right? Everybody, founders, and I'm sure you
yeah.
do your own recruitment. Uh, Many people have tried, many people have failed. Google left. um, and I think I want to get your thoughts on this. And very honestly, right, do you think recruitment tech will ever be solved completely?
I have a lot of friends in recruitment tech. Um, See, I think it's a process. Okay, again, not being diplomatic, will it be ever solved completely? I don't know, but I would like to think. Not I would like to think, but given the past patterns and how recruitment is, and I'll explain my thought process. I don't think it will be solved. And the thought process is this: that recruitment, the points where it breaks, if you see the points where it breaks, where I'll give you a simple example. Have you ever faced this, that you have reached out to a candidate, and the
Mhm.
candidate, let's say on a platform, and the CV of that candidate is 10 months old. They have kept that CV on the platform, not updated it. They are in some other job, and you have still reached out to the candidate. I have faced this multiple times,
Multiple times, yeah.
right? Multiple times, right? That's a breakage point. Now, can can a tool solve that? Probably, maybe if it's like very, very advanced, I don't know. But that's a very human breakage point. It's not something that we as HR are doing. It's how, candidates are operating. So, and there are these multiple breakage points in recruitment because of which you find so many platforms, right? From and we can obviously name it, and there are great ones from, let's say, a greenhouse, a lever, to all of these platforms, to turbo hires of the world, etc. Ask anybody, and I'll ask you, the platforms which you use, have you ever been happy with recruitment platforms? And the answer
No.
is probably
No.
no. Yeah.
But that's interesting. Why? Like I don't think I've ever really thought about what to me or what to you is success in recruitment. Like I click a button and I get a hire. Like, is that success? I think that's being very unrealistic. I think success would be I find the right fit for my job. Ultimately, that's what you're looking at, right? The right fit. Is that success for recruitment?
It is one of the parameters for sure. So it's not a unidimensional, success that we're talking about, because you might find the right fit, but how quickly do you find the right fit? How smooth was the process, right? And the reason why I have personally not been satisfied with recruitment platforms has got little to do with the recruitment platforms, apart from some platforms, UI, UX, which I always crib about a lot. But great platforms. But the problem was on my end, that my hiring managers are taking interviews and they're not putting in feedback. It's not moving to the next round. When the next round is happening, the next hiring manager is like, what happened in the previous round? I'm caught off guard. And then obviously I'm not going to blame myself, right? So I'm going to blame the platform. And I say that, oh, I wish the platform had an audio recording feature where the hiring manager, automatically gave the inputs and feedback. Those are wish lists which keep on coming. It's not. So obviously the platforms can improve, but the problems lie on both the sides, which is why it's very difficult to be happy with such a process where there are multiple breakage points.
I think is AI the answer? How can let's brainstorm. Like, do you think AI can help in certain way here apart from matching?
I think it can, like, if like I was just discussing this with a friend, that imagine that you and I are talking right now. This conversation has a tone to the conversation. It's a friendly conversation over here. If AI can really understand that, how the hiring manager probably felt, how the person felt, was there a fit in between? Because right now what we see, and we even when we hire, right, we are just 23 people, but even when we hire, what does AI do at the moment? AI matches and says that, hey, there is an 80% chance this person will be a good fit. Let's say Sharthok is applying to Ranak's team. Sharthok will be a good fit for Ranak. How does it do that? It looks at my CV. It says that you have the requisite skill sets, experience, etc., and does that. That's not how hiring works, right? I might be a completely different, individual in real life compared to what you're looking out for. The vibe matters, the attitude matters, the competencies, etc., which you're looking for, the values matter. So if that can be gauged during the conversation in terms of a fit, in terms of hiring manager, feedback, not verbatim feedback, but what's actually being said, in terms of reading between the lines, that I think would be fantastic application. Because a lot of times what I have seen is that I interview five people, and I am myself confused as to, out of those five, who to select. So if the AI can say that, hey Sharthuk, this is a graph of, let's say, how your conversations went in terms of these parameters which you selected yourself, and basis this person comes out on top, that would be very useful for me.
But is that the and I'll just spend a minute on this. But is that the 80/20 problem of recruitment? Like what the part that you're talking of? That's like step one,
Hmm.
two, I think third in the funnel.
Yeah.
Step
Yeah.
one is being inundated with CVs. Step two is going through so many CVs. Step three is
Yeah.
choosing, let's say, 5 out of 1,000. uh, Today, what you said, right? There's, what do we have? We only have skills, We only have years of experience to just go by, which is
Yeah.
obviously not enough. It's aged, it's not right. How
Hmm.
do you make the CVs better? Is there any way that if there was a blockchain, right? All of this information, everyone's information is on the blockchain, everyone's performance history, 360
Hmm.
feedbacks. Then I think AI can actually get more in-depth sense of the person, right? They'll know their performance history, they'll know which company they work, experience, feedback, manager feedback. I don't know whether that world will ever come because everyone seems to have moved out from blockchain into AI. But anyway, I think let's move on because yeah, I mean it's an interesting space. I know we know common friends who are trying to solve it, but at this point, my side would be just that first two parts. Yes, I've actually used tools which you said, the step four,
Hmm.
the I'm doing an
Hmm.
interview and it's analyzing. um, uh, it's actually great, right? For people who are not giving the feedbacks, maybe all these biases that we carry. But if someone can really solve the step one and two somehow,
Yeah.
it takes away the recruiter's time. Like, even if you take away 50% of the recruiter's time, it's a big win for me. And I still haven't found any tool which is doing that great. People now started
Yeah.
gaming the CVs anyway, right? So it doesn't really work. It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'll use that as a segue into AI. Everyone's talking of AI, AI, AI. This is that one, I think, technology which, I mean, we know it's here to stay. And I think it's a very
Hmm.
people pro technology. I think it's one of those few technologies which I think our function will really use. But
Yeah.
have you seen, like, forget about today, maybe let's think down the road, a year, 5 year, 10 years down the road, where do you really see AI making dents in the people space?
There's a lot of opportunities to make dents. Now, will it actually make a dent? Depends on how companies use those platforms. Like right now, for all the hoopla around ChatGPT and so on and so forth, not even taking into account the recent Altman movements and etc. But ChatGPT as a technology where and you are so great at this in terms of prompt engineering and so on and so forth. Where are we actually using ChatGPT? We are using ChatGPT to draft communication, right? And that's one of the biggest use cases that is happening right now, right? And AI has a lot of potential to make dents because if of course it comes with its own set of biases which we are all aware of, but if it can help in processes where typically there is a lot of, I would say, subjective human intervention, those are the areas where I see AI making dents. I'll give you a quick couple of examples. So let's say I'm writing performance feedback, right? And typically one of the things which we find is that there is recency bias, right? I only remembered the last month or the last couple of months. Now AI can help in two ways. One is collation of data, which you comb through the entire year, what happened in terms of one-on-ones, in terms of your Slack channels, your email communications, literally everything. You collate all data points and you give that holistic picture to the manager to self-review and so on and so forth. So collation of data and summarizing of data to create better output. That's the first stage where AI can definitely play a part. The second is then what happens when performance happens? Like runner creates Sharthok 4 out of 5, but then we go for talent management processes, right? Where it is extremely subjective that should Sharthok be promoted, and we say that there is a talent review board, and some people say that he has this competency, doesn't have this competency, blah blah blah, etc. Now this is incredibly subjective, right? Can and I think AI can make a dent in this because if it's integrated with, let's say, your everyday communication platforms, it knows exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, um, apart from the ones that you're not putting out on the channels. Um, and then can it come up with, I would say, objective parameters to reduce that level of subjectivity? That's where I think AI can definitely play a part. Any subjective human processes So I'm talking about performance because Klaar is in that domain, but think about, let's say, engagement, where right now, what do we get? I mean, even from Klaar, you get a heat map, right? Which is that, hey, this is the section you should focus on. But the next step of evolution would be you should focus on this section and probably and there are multiple tools like, let's say, an Infido, for example, who's doing well. So um, these are the people that you should focus on, but the next step would be that how should you focus on them, right? I mean, what are the parameters which they are actually looking out for? So you don't need to do a focus group discussion, you don't need to do a one-on-one, etc., because anyway in a one-on-one, people are notorious for not sharing the actual things with HR, right? And people are always fearful for HR. So can AI do that on my behalf, given that the person really understands the AI really understands the person? So definitely a lot of areas where AI can make dent, but again, it depends on how companies, if companies want to use it for drafting communication, or companies would be comfortable using this. That's the bigger question, I would say.
And one, thanks for sharing. I mean, but the one thing that sounds like it's a nightmare for privacy. I mean, I as an employee,
It
as an
is.
individual, give up everything that I'm talking. It's true that everything that I say on a company channel is not my intellectual property, right? I suppose it's there for the company to comb it, but do you really see people being okay with that? I mean, what you said will probably will happen, and it's great, right? All our biases, things that we miss out, AI doesn't. AI is listening to us all the time. It's reading through it, and even now it's good enough to give you very very accurate answers. Like I actually did that result. I did that test. I took a bunch of RENPS comments, ran it through ChatGPT, and it could very succinctly give me mood. uh, I told bucket it
Yeah.
in these parameters, and it did it brilliantly, right? But nobody knew I was doing that, and I was doing it as a test control.
Hmm.
But now if we are doing it at scale, so people are very aware that this is happening,
Hmm.
would people be okay with it? Would you be okay with this? I wouldn't be. I mean, I would. Then basically, then what's happening is it becomes like a double-edged sword, right? Then I'm very careful about what I'm writing. I'm not being honest, and I'm not being my true self at work. Then, so that problem also might come up.
I mean, for sure. Um, Yeah, for sure. I mean, see, at some level, we are living with it. We use WhatsApp, we use different multiple platforms. The difference being that we do this out of our own volition, and nobody's really asking us to do this. Would people
Hmm.
be comfortable in the sense that yeah, I mean, there is definitely that possibility that you mentioned, that I will not be my true self and probably only reserve that for when I talk to you face to face and not over any virtual medium. But even face to face, AI can be listening in. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to ponder about. See, I wouldn't have any problems as long as there are two things, which is the first one, which even we face in we as in when Klaar does any survey, a lot of the times companies mention that, hey, how can you guarantee anonymity, right? Because people feel that HR is just saying that it's anonymous, but actually it's not. And there are these funny reels and memes, right, which are there. But if if you can if a technology can guarantee anonymity and that trust can be built, then people's comfort level should automatically go up. But that's the bigger barrier to cross, right? Like how can trust be built on a platform, especially which HR is getting into the fold? That I think is a different battle to fight.
Yeah. Just to double click on your anonymity point, since we both are from this, I think in theory anonymity is not happening today, right? But in practicality, I guess it is. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Like, if any tool is, I mean, at the back end the data is there, but then there are checks and
Hmm.
balances, and principles basis which we decide that no, we will maintain the anonymity unless like there is self
Yeah.
harm and there is abuse and certain things, right?
Yeah.
Interesting thing, I rolled out a survey, and the first person who responded in a comment wrote that I can guarantee this is not anonymous. That was the first comment in the survey.
Yeah.
It's funny. Um, but a double click again to this question, what we are discussing, right? A time comes when AI is like all pervasive into our work, right? And I'm talking like 5, 6, 10 years down the line. Where does
Hmm.
the human element come in? I think that's a question that gets asked now also with there's so much tools.
Hmm. Hmm.
HR used to be about more people, right?
Hmm.
Now it's what at least everyone thinks it's very tech. Uh,
Hmm.
I have an answer, but I want to understand from you as the co-founder of a technology platform. What's the
Hmm.
right balance? What is it supposed to be?
From an employee perspective, and putting myself in the shoes of an employee now, I mean, the balance is that, and actually, when I was an employee, we used to lament in some cases that there is no HR for HR. And we used to lament that because,
Mhm.
at some points, you need human intervention. Now, what are those points, and can they be uniform across? So the human element comes in, for example, where imagine that you want to have a difficult conversation with a direct report, right? And of course, ChatGPT can help you throughout, right? But and there are these platforms which have come up which are now doing SDR calls, right? Not in HR tech, but they're doing SDR calls, etc. But imagine that if you're having that difficult sort of a conversation, the person you're having that conversation with, should that rather come from a human or from like something like a ChatGPT? Because then essentially what we are saying is that we don't think that you deserve human emotions as a person, right? When we are having those difficult conversations. So I don't see the human element going out. And I think a lot more people, a lot more HR, I think, stalwarts have mentioned this, that the human element is here to stay. What is getting rapidly replacing is if getting rapidly replaced is that if your job comprises of a lot of repetitive work, manual work, even in HR, which you would find that you're launching, you're tracking, and that's the sort of a role that you're in, you might benefit a lot from the AI automations, right? So ultimately, you can't. So imagine this, right? You are having a promotion conversation. You can't have AI pull the trigger, right? Because your justification can't be that we are promoting because ChatGPT is asking us to promote. That will never be the case. You will always need a person, battling for another person, but the way you decide will, undergo a rapid transformation, a massive transformation. So that's the difference in terms of um, the people would always be there, but your arsenal increases. It frees up your time to do more strategic work, I would say. Um, and and of course, when you're talking to another person, talking, not communication. Communication in terms of communication can behavior, launching a performance review process. That's a communication. ChatGPT does that far better than me. But if we are having a difficult conversation that you know difficult or a happy conversation where emotions are involved, that's when humans still um, will remain in the picture, because as humans we value other human emotions, and something like a chat gpt um, is not apt at that moment unless it reaches that level where it can amazingly mimic human emotions.
So essentially, what you're saying is when the going gets tough, the humans come in, but when it's good, when it's positive, your example, right? You said when you're having a promotion conversation, a tool should not pull the trigger, but why not? Like, ideally, there's a lot of math behind it. We have nine box, we have quadrants, we have a lot of like. okay, this is the past history, this is the current history, this is the potential, this is the rating, this is the comp, this is the benchmark, right? Ergo, this
Hmm.
person should get promoted. That isn't that better than someone coming and saying that I feel like this person should get promoted, right? That may be right, I don't know. But isn't the
Hmm.
mathematical way of doing it more objective and error free? Don't you think?
It is. So my thought process goes this way. Like if you see, we have to bear in mind that if I'm promoting a person, I'm also not promoting another person. I can't promote everybody in that list, right? So I have to look at both the aspects. Now, it is 100% better that I have the complete arsenal of information with me, which AI can, play a huge dent in. Why I said that a human intervention or pulling the trigger will still happen from a human point of view is, in my eyes, as a human, let's say the AI knows everything about Ranak, right? Literally everything about Ranak. As long as, of course, those communications have been on those channels and all of those things that we discussed. But does, for example, the AI understand Ranak's emotions in terms of, let's say, God forbid, there is some, family tragedy which happens and your performance dips for a while, something of that sort happens. Can the
Hmm.
AI be intelligent enough to understand this and recommend and so on and so forth? If that's the case, where it's really all encompassing, then by all means, let's go ahead and let AI decide and pull the trigger, etc. But we also need to realize that when we are talking about subjective things like promotions, at least in my mind, I am promoting somebody for tomorrow, right? As much as I'm promoting somebody for their good hard work, right? For tomorrow. So that tomorrow is in my mind. I might not have put it out on any platform yet. I might not have drafted my OKRs, etc., etc. But I have in my mind 5 years down the line where I want to see Klaar. There is no way that AI is accessing that unless it has mind control, maybe years down the line. But um, that thing cannot be very very easily replaced. So that is why I was saying that a human needs to be in charge of these things, at least at the moment. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. I mean, till the time the AI gets sentient,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
when that happens, that you open up another Pandora's box. So I've always wondered this. Like a day will come when it gets sentient. I don't know. Hopefully, it doesn't end in Terminator, but there's definitely robots on the horizon, right? You've heard Brett Addock. He's already making robots, right? Which is going to be
Yeah.
part of, he's making robots particularly for the workforce, right? They are going to be, let's
Yeah.
say, Amazon guys who handle couriers, bring all of it.
Hmm.
Now today they're just following a bunch of instructions. Tomorrow they are going to be, I won't say feel, but do you think a time will come where now us in the people function, and you and I are for sure are going to live to see this, is we will be discussing HR policies. I don't know, HR is the right word, policies for robots and AI, right? Will that happen?
Hmm.
If that happens, or first of all, do you think that will ever happen?
Yes, that's the Asimov reality, right? So what Brett is building today, again, it's to replace the aut- manual is not a good word for it, but to replace the repetitive tasks, right? Like you drive a UPS truck,
Hmm.
you get down on you identify an address, you get down at an address, identify the box and parcel and drop it down. And I think yes, what you mentioned is something we will live to see, where we will need, uh, you know, like how we have worker protection rules and etc. We will need that. And probably even even without robots turning sentient, which they very well might, um, but even in terms of how much can a machine be worked, and so on and so forth. So the protection might start coming from how it evolved on the shop floor itself, right? So in the shop floor, like, you would know, the first set of laws and everything were there to protect the safety of the workers. Forget mental safety, etc. It was there to protect the physical safety. Like, if you're operating in a mine, if you're operating in a shop floor, these are the protocols that you should follow. These are the laws, etc. You can't be overworked beyond this, etc., etc. So the same sort of evolution is what I'm thinking will happen in terms of when robots also come in, because they'll also need maintenance, they'll also need etc., etc. So that sort of evolution till the time they reach
Yeah, so one
sentience. And
interesting
hope.
anecdote.
Yeah, yeah, one.
Please go on.
No, 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 no. I'm interested to know, because you have these best anecdotes.
Yeah, so, yeah. So I was reading history of our function, history of HR. Actually, the first HR laws and everything was designed around getting people to work not drunk. That was
There you go.
1860
Yeah.
70s, I think. Literally, that's how the HR function was made. Somebody was responsible to get people to work, not show up not drunk, and hence policies were made, which then got evolved into, over time. Yeah, I think that we'll not have that problem with robots for sure.
Mm.
But sorry, please go on.
Yeah. Hopefully not. Um, yeah, but even in, so a very, I think, easy example to relate would be what's happening in majorly in San Francisco right now with a lot of driverless cars, right? So even for that, there are these protocols that are coming into the picture. I won't actually call them like um, labor laws or something, because it's not that way. But there are these protocols that are coming into the picture, and the same way,
Some
it
accident
will
happened,
evolve
didn't
till the
it? Like
time.
it killed someone or something.
It did actually, and there is that thing still going on where where exactly did the problem lie, because it is supposed to even, and like you would know, San Francisco is pretty organized. Like the US is pretty organized, right? So even if you are jaywalking, it's nothing like the jaywalking that we have in India, right? So that debate is going on, like, um, why did that happen? Because such cars are meant to also detect jaywalking. Yeah, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's the evolution which, I think, at least happening, where the first question, which is actually, I didn't think of it to date, which you asked, that will we need these sort of labor legislations, worker protection acts, etc., for robots? I think yes. I mean, we will at one point of time, and maybe we'll see it in our lifetimes.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be waiting for that day we sit and talk about, hey, what let's do right for the robot. But yeah, all right. Another interesting thing, and I think I wanted to ask you this again. You run your own HR tech company, right? And the markets kind of dried up various reasons, right? We'll not get into that, but we all know that there is it's a play of the ecosystem, and for sure it's going to bounce back, and it will, and it needs to.
Yeah.
What do you see, right? The next HR tech unicorn doing? I know Klaar is going to be one day, but apart from that, what's the next HR tech unicorn going to do? Right? What are they going to solve? What's the problem they'll be solving?
See, I think it would again. I'll go back to my answer to your first question, which was that what would you advise an HR business partner? That what would you solve? So the next, see, being a unicorn, and thank you for that vote of confidence on Klaar, but it's essentially a function of um, how many customers you're getting, the revenue that you're getting, etc. Unless you are able to, and some people are very good at this, where you're able to paint a utopian picture and you raise, tons of money without having customers and revenue on the ground. So that's not something which I'm considering at the moment. The market is correcting
Yeah,
itself,
absolutely.
but it will solve what becomes important, more and more important to people. So the first stage of HR tech unicorns, if you find, was that what was more important is that HRIS, right, information systems, that became more important because there was no way of storing information, and that was important. The next stage of evolution, companies like, for example, let's say a Lattice and certain other companies, they are our competition, but of course they're good ones. And that stage of evolution, because then the focus moved that here we have all of this information over here. How do we now move to the next lever of creating a high performing company, right? I mean, we're not doing much with that information. So how do we create that high performing company? The third stage of evolution is what starts becoming even more important in terms of people priorities, and one area where you hold so much clout is, I think, where we will see a lot more action and probably unicorns, is people analytics. Because now we have that information. We have, let's say, there are companies cracking how to become a high performing culture. Klaar is trying that. Bunch of others are trying that. But then comes that, all of these are still at the end of the day sort of standalone with the other information which is there. So people analytics, the way I see it is, I don't see it as a silver bullet, but it's as close to a silver bullet as it gets. Like, how does everything come together? How do you combine that? And can you make meaning out of that, multiple sources of information? So I think great potential in the people analytics field, and probably something which we aren't even thinking about at the moment. Like, I don't know if you've heard of this company. I recently got to know Pave. Pave is a company which does compensation planning, and if you think about it from an Indian perspective, right? Compensation planning. I mean, how many companies would use that? Only the bigger ones would use it. Pave just became a unicorn, right? So it really depends on
Wow.
um, the people priorities, how it evolves, and also of course the execution capabilities of the companies. But people analytics is one field which I'm like very very gung-ho about. Of course AI will come in, and all of those things. And I've been recently hearing a lot about ONA, like organization network analysis, how that can play a part. That's another field that I'm excited about once the companies keep on evolving. Because at right now, like if you tell companies that apart from like super big ones that you use ONA, it's it's a very far-fetched proposition at the moment, because we are looking at the basics and the second, third tiers. But these are the two areas I'm really excited to also watch.
So, for everyone listening, would you define what is ONA and what does it do?
That's a good one. I'm not the subject matter expert on this, but I'll tell you my understanding of it. ONA is essentially when, or at least the way I look at it, what I would like ONA to solve is, in a 500-person company, there are, for one single person, that person, the way that person can interact with the company is literally a function of NCX, right? If we look at permutation combination, right? So those numbers will change. Now, with each people doing that, it creates multiple nodes of communication, right? So what my understanding of organization network analysis is that for every particular person, for every particular function, and you can create as much as data cuts as you want, is that where are those nodes? What are those robust nodes? what are the nodes where you don't find information traveling at all. Now, why is this important and not just something which probably a very tech person would do? It's important because every company complains that after a certain level, there has been silos. And how do we prevent silos? We need more communication, etc. But you see, that's a very broad brush approach that, we need more communication. Where do you need more communication? Where is that silo happening? Do you even know? I mean, as HR, I didn't know, right? So if we can pinpoint those nodes where we realize that communication is actually breaking off when it should be flowing, that's where ONA can actually help. That okay, this is where we need to start focusing on the handoff between, let's say, like engineering and sales. Engineering doesn't know what how sales is selling, and sales doesn't know why engineering is taking up so much of time. So can we bridge that gap basically? That's my understanding of ONA. But what do you think? Like how does it figure in your thoughts?
Yeah, no, broadly that. The only thing I'll add is instead of tending to the negative, there's also a big positive, which is who are our power connectors, right? So these are those people who are the most connected in the organization by choice, right? So now the CEO or the heads of business are obviously going to be connected to their first layer.
Hmm.
But there are certain people, you'll be surprised that the power brokers in the company are very rarely the business leaders and the CEOs. I did it at my previous company, and we got surprising results. And then I spoke to a bunch of people, and same things came up that the power brokers, the ones who are the most connected in the company, are typically not the very, very senior people. Now, these are people who are, I don't know, can be anywhere, right? Can be in the middle, can be junior, doesn't matter, right? But it's very rarely the seniors. Now, where that helps is, right, your point is absolutely valid, right? You know whether information is breaking, right? And especially if you're doing a cross collaboration project or you're working in a pod, you do an analysis of the pod and see the pod itself is not talking to each other. So there you go,
Yeah.
you have your answer why deliverables are not being met. But this is super useful, especially for us, right? That in very large cases, right, it's, if you want to drive an agenda, especially a people agenda, don't drive
Hmm.
it through the CEO, don't drive it through the business leaders, drive it through these power brokers,
Absolutely.
connectors, right? Because these are the ones
Yeah.
who they listen to, right? It's a very interesting thing came about. I had no idea, but we actually tried it and worked wonderfully. Till people
Nice.
figure out that this person has actually become gone over to the dark side. But it was interesting. Cool. I'll just my closing. I have a couple of questions for you. Nothing to do with
Absolutely.
our people space. Nothing to do with tech. Shatuk, you're an influencer, man. Like on LinkedIn, you
No, no.
are, and this is my personal question as somebody who's been. I just realized I was looking back that I've been writing on LinkedIn for 4 years now, actively making an effort. I've got no results whatsoever, but that's not the point. Two questions for you. One, by the way, love your posts, right? You're one of those few whose posts I actually read instead of just skim and like.
Thank you.
Um, What's your thought process behind these? You write good posts, like let's acknowledge it. What's your thought process behind coming up with these posts?
I think when first of all, thank you for the very, very kind comments. My my college friends are not so kind, and if they see this, they will know exactly who I'm talking about. But jokes aside, when I started writing, I think my thought was just to, even I've been writing for 4 years, maybe five. My thought was just, that there are experiences which I have faced, and just to put it out there. Honestly, I love writing, and LinkedIn was a way where I could write, and I won't say that cliche that I could also get feedback and stuff. Obviously, that dopamine hit of getting multiple likes, etc. I also have it, but my thought process was just to put out the writing. Now it has, I think, significantly changed post Klaar, because I make a conscious effort to follow a particular narrative. I have never fabricated a story on LinkedIn, which is something I'm very, very clear about. There are these multiple posts and memes on posts, that how people have been giving out jobs, etc. and those are engagement farming, like, and probably my follower count, connection count would be much higher if I did that, but I'm very clear I'm not going to do that. That doesn't appeal to me. And the way I see it, that how can I link the experiences which I had in HR to what is happening in my life right now, and something which I keep on hearing from people. I love your posts as well, by the way. One of the biggest things which I have found on posts is on your posts is that it's very actionable. Now, you would find that you might have greater engagement on Twitter compared to LinkedIn with actionable posts, because for whatever reason, LinkedIn doesn't do well with a lot of actionable posts, unless it also has a healthy dose of uh, emotional content, so to speak of, right? So that's my thought process. That how can I make it, relatable for people who are reading it, and also at the same time, be true to what actually I have faced, and how I want to spin that narrative as to what I am doing in Klaar right now. So yeah, that's a long answer to a short question.
That's helpful. So, do you have like a time carved out where you specifically said you're jotting it down, or it's like on the fly now it comes to you?
It was on the fly. Now I do have a time carved out because posts are drying up, so it's not on the fly anymore. Um, by the way, I don't know if you know this. LinkedIn detects if you have scheduled a post, and LinkedIn algorithm
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't like scheduled posts over this
correct.
one. So I post it live, but I do carve out a time where I can create that content.
Yeah, yeah. That was honestly stupid. Like they introduced the feature themselves of scheduling it, and then they are sort of hurting your algorithm. Doesn't make sense. I don't like the tweak that they made, grow and connect. Now you're forcing me. The main dopamine hit
Hmm.
was that I'm getting so many requests. Now I open it, I'm like, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. I mean, I do, but anyway, just shouldn't say these on the podcast. But um, a very prescriptive question for one for me and also for people listening. Right? I know people now pretty much unanimously everybody's taking LinkedIn seriously. They've seen that there's dividends on LinkedIn. To somebody listening who's just starting out, who's just barely got about a K, 1,000 odd followers, like, would you have like a blueprint or prescription for growth to 5K? I know 5K to 10K is probably different, but
Hmm.
to someone starting out 1 to 5K, what would it be? And again, this is very contextual to me. I'm asking you this: 5 to 10K, how do you go from then?
So 5 to 10K, like that part of it. Um, I think the biggest, so and I'll draw comparisons between Twitter and LinkedIn, right? In Twitter, you would find that the more you interact, the more the Twitter algorithm still prefers you, right? So what that means is that even if I post once a day, but if I interact with 10 different people a day, Twitter will favor me, right? So my posts henceforth, you will find a lot of follows, etc., from your posts, etc., from your interactions. LinkedIn is separate that way, or at least it's been the case for me, where of course you interact, but you might not gain a lot of clout from those interactions, right? And that's where I think the biggest um, prescription for LinkedIn is write every day, maybe even twice a day. And I was reading, I only have like around 20,000 connections, followers, whatever you say. But people who have actually, scaled like blitzkrieg completely, like 0 to 100K in a year, sort of a thing, what they say is that even posting twice, sometimes even thrice a day is not bad. So, but the actual thing is that you need to post consistently every day, something which I've been also struggling with recently with my move and everything.
But
But
does that get you followers, new followers, just posting, or is there something else to it?
not just posting, of course, like you have to interact with people for sure. Comments on other posts, and all of those things. But yeah, so if you post consistently, if you post in the format that LinkedIn prefers, I think that's like really important. In the sense that, like I was saying, LinkedIn prefers, and there are these memes on LinkedIn, right? Like LinkedIn prefers a little bit of emotional connect. If you post in those formats, that's when you would find an of course an influx of followers and communicating with other people and so on and so forth. At least that's how my growth has been. I'm no LinkedIn expert, but that's how my growth was from, I remember, from 5 to 10, and it significantly sped up after 15K. I think it significantly sped up. But yeah, I used to post consistently in that LinkedIn format. That's what I would say.
Got it. So if you're 5K plus, post every day, post what LinkedIn likes, which is a little bit of emotions, connect, maybe throw in a selfie here and there, um, works. But is it
Those,
different for
yeah,
1 to 5, or it's
yeah.
the same prescription? Cool. Got
Um,
it.
I
Got it. Cool. Shakti,
Yeah.
then. Yeah. Nee, go on. Go on.
No, I was
Sorry.
saying probably it's the same sort of a thing where um, like Twitter, when you're at 1 to 5, like um, unlike Twitter, rather, Twitter may, if you're at 1 to 5 and you're posting, your posts might still go into the abyss. But in LinkedIn, if you're posting, even when you're at 1 to 5, it does reach eyeballs, you would find. So it's a good strategy to post
Hmm.
consistently while, communicating with others. And then after a certain level, I think after 50K, 100K, it automatically, snowballs. Prabir, I don't know if you follow him. Prabir, in spite of having, I don't know, 500K, 600K, I don't even know the massive number right now of people who follow him. In spite of that, he religiously posts every day, which is, and we can debate on the content of the posts. I mean, a lot of people send me screenshots that, hey, this is your Prabir and this is what he has done. All of that's fine, but he religiously posts every day. That's a huge plus for me.
Yeah, I mean, without putting in the work, it's not going to happen, right? I mean, has been, yeah, I've been following for a long time. He's been doing it pretty much every day, and there's always good content. There's only so much content I think you can keep putting up. One thing that helped me was I did some events with other big forums,
Yeah.
and I got like 500-600 follows, likes, not likes, what's it called, connections,
Hmm.
instantly. Like my phone had hung. What's happening? It's never happened before. uh, cool, Shatak. We are kind of out of time, but thank you for taking your time out. For those who are listening, maybe you want to leave them with where they can find you, probably LinkedIn, but where they can find you and where they can find Klaar.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Klaar you can find on klaarhq.com. That's our website. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. I'm super responsive over there. And yeah, those are the two channels. And drop me a message. You would find me mostly responding. Sometimes I'm late, but I will respond.
All right, thank you, Shatak, for coming on. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ronak. This was a really good discussion, like in terms of the topics that we touched. So thank you for doing this because even the podcast which I was thinking of, and most HR podcasts, same old topics, right? I mean, how do you do this and performance and etc. And of course, that's my bread and butter. But the topics that you touched on, thank you for shedding light and a lot of good luck for this podcast. Please do continue.
Thank you. Thanks for this kind words, Shatak. Thank you.
See you. Bye.